We have all seen it out and about, anywhere from on the television from a movie or a show, or maybe even in Walmart or another local store. Perhaps you have even had a family member complete this action. This topic is actually an extreme concern among Americans today. Women's public breastfeeding. Now, some of you may think, no, that's wrong and gross and I do not approve. While some of you may think that it's okay and after all, the mother is just feeding her hungry child. Everyone, of course, is entitled to his or her own opinion. But is it really a natural thing for a woman to do this? Is it a public distraction or a disturbance? And should a woman be confined to home in order to breastfeed her child? I have been casually walking through a store or a restaurant and have seen a woman breastfeeding her child on multiple occasions. Personally, it has never occurred to me as a gross or disgusting thing. With having 4 younger brothers and sisters, my mother has modestly breastfed in public with all of them. Coming from someone who has had experience with this and finds it as a normalcy, may be entirely different from what a person who has never experienced this with a close relative or a friend may feel about this topic. It is a way of life, a way for a mother to bond with her child. This form of feeding has been the natural way for centuries. Today, I would like to share with you several valid arguments for why breastfeeding is a natural, normal thing for women to do, whether it be in public or in private. We'll touch on several subjects, including, number 1, the history of breastfeeding, number 2, the lowering of the medical risks with breastfeeding, and number 3, the federal and state laws with breastfeeding. First, let's look at the history of breastfeeding and bottle feeding. According to the U.S. National Library of Health, the historical evolution of infant feeding includes wet nursing, the feeding bottle, and formula use. Before the invention of bottles and formula, wet nursing was the safest and the most common alternative to natural mother's breast milk. Society's negative view of wet nursing combined with improvements of the feeding bottle, the availability of animal's milk, and advances in formula development. This all gradually led to the substitution of artificial feeding for wet nursing. Also, according to the UNLH, the use of animal's milk for infant feeding is noted as far back as 2000 BC. Since then, alternative milk sources have evolved to include the synthetic formulas of today. The use of artificial feeding substances grew rapidly and was significantly influenced by advertising campaigns. Since 1865, scientists have tried to create a synthetic formula equal to human milk. The Infant Formula Act of 1980 authorized the Food and Drug Administration to assure quality control of infant formulas. Now, different vessels and containers have been discovered throughout the years, dating back a few thousand years BC. But breastfeeding has always been the main source of feeding from a mother to her child. And here I have a photo of an ancient bottle used by a mother. The UNLH website stated that the breastfeeding rates in the United States have decreased significantly in the 21st century, resulting in serious health issues that include diabetes and childhood obesity. Research suggests that breastfeeding prevents adverse health conditions, whereas formula feeding is linked with their development. This evidence confirms breastfeeding is still the best source of infant nutrition and the safest method of an infant feeding. Now that we have learned the history of various feeding types from mother to her child, let us look on to the medical risks that can be lowered by breastfeeding from a mother, for both the mother and her child. Now, a mother's breast milk has all of the nutrients such as vitamins, minerals, and fats, all of the perfect things needed to keep a baby healthy. Breast milk includes various antibodies that fight off viruses and diseases and the in the baby. According to WebMD.com, babies who are breastfed exclusively for the first 6 months without any formula whatsoever, they have fewer ear infections, respiratory illnesses, and bouts of diarrhea. They also have fewer hospitalizations and trips to the doctor. Breastfeeding also burns extra calories for the mother, so it can help you lose pregnancy weight faster. It releases the hormone oxytocin, which helps your uterus return to pre-pregnancy size and may reduce uterine bleeding after birth. Breastfeeding also lowers your risk of breast and ovarian cancer. It may also lower your risk of osteoporosis too. And studies have been conducted that suggest that breastfeeding may even decrease the risk of breast cancer later on in life for the mother. We will now move on for a brief moment to the various state laws concerning public breastfeeding. According to NCLS.org, President Obama passed the federal law, the Affordable Care Act of 2011, to require an employer to provide reasonable break time for an employee to express breast milk for her nursing child for 1 year after the child's birth, each time such an employee has need to express the milk. 49 different states in the United States of America, including our very own Alabama, have adapted their own state laws specifically allowing women to breastfeed in any public or private location. In summary, public breastfeeding is perfectly okay. Most of the concerns within the people of America are more on a personal scale. It's not with the state or national level because it has been deemed okay. Summary, that the breastfeeding has been the natural source of milk for an infant since the beginning of time. It is the most natural form of feeding for the child. Breastfeeding is an extremely beneficial thing to both the mother and her child. Most every state have their own laws about public breastfeeding, saying that it is perfectly okay. Let's go back to our original question. Is public breastfeeding normal and okay to be done? Many individuals personally believe that it's disturbing and immodest and feel as though it needs to be done privately. But if a child is hungry and needs to be fed while in public, as long as the mother is modest while doing so, keeping herself covered and successfully feeding her child, she is doing the right thing. Thank you.